Hi, well, Alan, this is our first ever blue
First
collar
ever.
breakdown.
Excited because we
Yeah,
had a
this should be good.
electrifying weekend to say the least.
It was interesting. Well, hold on. Let's introduce everybody to you, Alan. Where's home for you?
So I'm a Dakota boy through and through, but I live in Arkansas right now. Moved south, I know. Escaped the snow. I miss the snow, but makes good
So,
football. Makes good football. But yep, that's where I'm at. Southern State.
oh, miss the snow. Yeah, I'm sure. All right. All
Beats
right.
100
Well, and
degrees. I'll tell you that.
I don't know, man. We're still getting 100 degrees up here.
That is true. That is true.
Oh, shoot. So Alan and I played football together back in the day, so that's how we know each other, or we're day one boys. So
Day one.
anyway,
And you got a
yeah,
little bit
let's
of
just
college football action.
yeah. I got to play a little bit in college, a little bit of JUCO, so can't say I was on the big stage, but
But it's
you know,
something. I mean, a lot of people don't get there. So, I
that's
mean,
true.
I
That's
could have
true.
with Jamestown up in North Dakota, but I had to decline that. I didn't like that college. Did not like the feel of it. Did not like it.
Right.
But
Take that, Jamestown.
it had a weird philosophy on football. Like they wanted at the time. I don't know about now, but at the time they were like, "Oh, let's get everyone a chance to play and stuff," and they're subbing a lot. But that I don't.
Hmm.
You just gotta
Gotta
it's the
win.
hard truth. If you want to win, you just got to put your best players out. Have an actual
Exactly.
depth chart. But yeah,
Yeah, absolutely.
I think the coach got fired
Absolutely.
a week after I visited them. But anyway,
Speaking of coach firings, we want to jump into the new coaches that we got already in the college football playoffs, or excuse me, college football playoff discussion,
yeah,
making splashes.
let's start with you. And this ain't really a splash. Maybe it's old news for your team, not alma mater, but
Oof.
your team that you've gone through, the Nebraska Cornhuskers.
Yeah. So, what do you want to know, Alan?
So
I
I
mean,
want to know from the perspective of a Nebraska fan. I'll give my input on this or view on this, but from your view, you're a diehard Nebraska fan. I know this. Your
mhm.
whole family likes Nebraska, so I want to hear
Yep.
your view, how what you're seeing.
Oh man. Well, as a Nebraska fan, it's tough. With the three coaching changes recently here, just historically, when people talk about new coach in Nebraska, it's hard for me to buy back in. I wanted to drink the Kool-Aid right out the gate, and I said, you know what? Let's see game one first, and we'll see where we're going. And with Minnesota, it was hard-nosed football.
Right.
I will say it was. I mean, Minnesota came out with a pretty stellar offense. We came out with a stellar defense, and our offense came out pretty flat, and their defense came out pretty strong. And when you start talking about their offensive weapons, their quarterback, for not playing much last year, he's really stepped up into that role nicely.
Okay.
He had some phenomenal clutch plays you just don't see from a quarterback who doesn't have a lot of years experience. So as much as I want to say, Nebraska took it on the chin, I think they played lights out. There was a few key errors of penalties and turnovers. With four turnovers, it's tough to win any game. So
Right. Yeah.
I think
Turnovers is the
we
big thing, protecting the ball.
yeah, yep. So 10 to 13, you can't be too disappointed with a score where you're a dog in the fight all the way to the end, but
Yeah, you gotta
I
be
mean,
happy with the defense at least. If any
yeah,
positive comes out of it.
I'm excited for our defense. We lost a D tackle due to targeting, so
Hmm.
I come out a little flat, but I'm excited for
Yeah,
what
this
that
seems
team brings
like
to the table.
anytime I watch Nebraska football, they always get targeted. Like targeting the plays against them. One famous one is that receiver against the Badgers in that was it a bowl game or the
Are you
Big Ten championship?
Big Ten
Big
champion?
Ten
You're
chip.
thinking Kenny Bell?
Kenny
Yeah,
Bell, yeah.
yep,
That's when Melvin Gordon was like the second or third string running back too.
yep. Well, and he he actually got a defenseless player call on him. That
Mm.
one was, if you listen to the announcers on that one, they said that was the best block he's ever seen.
Yeah.
But, you know,
I don't
rules
think that would have
change.
helped stop Wisconsin scoring 73 on them, but
You know, it was a rough go.
It
It's
was a
been a
rough
rough
go,
go.
yeah. But okay.
Yeah. So I
Heard a
guess
guy. Okay.
going forward, we're looking ahead Colorado, and that's going to be.
Ooh, yeah.
I don't
Speaking.
even I don't even think that Vegas knows where to put the game. I
No,
think that they don't feel confident. But
I don't think anyone. Obviously, and we're going into Colorado now. You know, it's a huge question mark. Dion comes in. You know, prime time. Everyone knows prime time. I hope maybe not today's high school players, but they should. Um, he was kind of flashy, arrogant, but he had every right to be. You know, he's really good Hall of
yeah,
Famer. I think he's won three
yeah,
Super Bowls, but he was on a lot of teams. Falcons. I think he was drafted by the Falcons, but yeah, a lot of changes, not just to the coaching, but players. He brought his own players. I think there was 87 transfers, changes, something like that. And he
yeah,
obviously brought some from Jackson State. I think that's the name of that his first team, right? Jackson State, I believe.
yeah.
But
Yep. Jacksonville State.
excuse me. But but yeah, everyone, you know, it's either, from a fan perspective, you thought TCU and even some experts, you know, TCU would run away with this game. Um, and then some of the smarter experts or more analytical experts just didn't know what you see out of Colorado. They won one game last year, um,
Hmm.
so you would like to see something. You know, we didn't know.
Yeah,
And me personally, I thought TCU would win by 20. Like they were last year's championship beat down team that got destroyed by Georgia. I mean, let's not beat around the bush. That was probably the worst championship game I've attempted to watch. I only watched one quarter because I knew it was going to be ugly. Um, the only other ugly game
yeah,
was that I remember in championship history was probably Notre Dame and Alabama. You know, Notre Dame was number one. Everyone hyped up, um, and then they got rocked 42-7, I believe. That was a while ago
mm.
though. That was still with the BCS standings and stuff, not the playoffs.
Mm.
I
Hmm.
don't know if you watched the game. I watched the game um, at
Are
a
you talking
bar.
about
The
Colorado?
Colorado and
Yeah.
TCU's game.
Oh yeah.
You
Game of the
watched it.
weekend.
Yeah. Oh yeah.
Oh yeah.
Game. Almost an instant classic. I mean, it's not the greatest football game ever that I've seen, but it was. Yeah, I'd probably say top 20. It was a really good game.
Yeah.
Um,
Oh yeah.
but man, that was a beauty to watch. Yeah, I think I watched like 2 minutes into the fourth quarter or first quarter, and all the way through. And man, that that offense is just clicking right, just instantly clicking. They were not missing a beat at all.
Oh yeah. Can we talk about Shadur there for a second?
The
I mean,
quarterback,
coming in. Yeah. Yeah, we're talking
Jesus,
Deion's son here.
yeah,
I'll be honest, hearing the announcement of him
yeah.
and hearing that, his son's gonna start, I was thinking, wow, coach's kid, big shocker.
Oh yeah, the classic. You know, it's
Oh my.
yeah. I'll
Listen to
say
this
so.
stat line.
Yeah,
Listen to this stat line. 38 of 47 completions,
510 yards.
510 yards, 4 touchdowns. What do you think his quarterback rating is, Alan?
Um, are we going with one that's like from 0 to 100 or past 100?
Oh, it's past 100.
So I'm guessing like 151.
200.
200. I didn't think it could go up that
200.
high.
I didn't either. He
Wow.
played stellar.
Oh
We're
yeah.
talking 81% completion percentage.
Yeah.
He was averaging 11 yards, just under 11 yards.
Per
That
attempt.
is, yeah,
Yeah.
that is wild.
And dude, like, and they were, and I like their aggressiveness, like 4th and 3 at their like 40 and like stuff like that, small things, and they executed. Like, it wasn't just big plays and a few bad throws, and he was lights out,
Yeah, he
lights out.
was. Now, I will say, if there's one thing that Dion should watch for, he was very repetitious in his offense. And from a perspective of merely spectating, it seemed like he would come up, he'd run a couple run plays, and then he'd throw it deep, or he'd run it on first, and then he'd throw it deep. And I think it's reflective of how predictable the running game is. when you start looking at the rushing stats. I mean, albeit he wanted Shador to get as many touches as possible, as any father should who has
Yeah.
the position to affect his ability for Heisman. However, their rushing game was pretty stagnant.
Yeah, I mean, and then in college football, I don't know if you knew this. I found out this on Saturday that even they consider sacks rushing plays too. That's just weird. I don't know why they do
Since
that.
when?
I don't know, but I never saw Shadir run the ball, and apparently he has 5 carries for negative 32 yards. So, but
Oh,
yeah, that's what the
interesting.
radio announcer said. So
When the quarterback touches it. Yeah, yeah,
yeah, when the
absolutely.
quarterback gets
I just,
sacked.
yeah, yeah, yeah.
Yeah,
But rushing attempts, they had 34, and their yards per attempt was
was 1.6,
1.6.
but that
Yeah,
also includes Shador too, getting sacked.
right. But you're talking total of 55 rushing yards. Their top rusher was Wilkerson with
45.
45 yards.
Yeah,
Yeah, pretty flat, one-dimensional. So if they're going to come
and
out,
and that surprises me because their O line played really good, like in terms of
they
like
did.
passing. Like Shador didn't get rushed too many times. So, um,
Yeah, well, and TCU packed the box. In all fairness, that was their game plan was
yeah,
to stop the run and make them pass, and they passed.
they passed and they couldn't defend. That 4th and 3 play, I think it went for like 40 yards, touchdown.
Yeah,
The poor guy, the running back, Dylan Edwards, he had like 4 touchdowns, I believe. Yeah, he did.
yeah,
Um,
yeah,
you can't have a linebacker on him. Clearly, you just can't because he's just too fast. Um, and yeah, I mean,
yeah. Well, and at what point do you change up the game plan if you're TCU? You're number 17. Yeah, you're walking tall. You're ranked in the top 25, but you got to switch things up. I mean,
they have
you
to figure
can't.
out things quickly because it'll turn ugly. And then
Yeah,
in terms of running the ball, like TCU can run the ball. They had 262 yards, 4
right.
tutties. They can run the ball, but
They were.
I mean the quarterback. I mean not the greatest, but he did play better in the second half. Chandler Morris
Yeah,
replacing the Max Duggan,
yeah,
but
yep. They help.
obviously the question for TCU is their defense. Like I think last year they gave up 89 20 plus yard plays. Yeah, you just can't do that. I think that was
No.
130th ranked. That's how bad that was. And
Wow.
that continued last Saturday. So they
Yeah.
need to
Yep.
you could and also, they have a lot of changes, some personnel from every, like I don't think they returned like 3 people from last year or something crazy like
Wow.
that.
Wow.
So obviously they have a
Well,
new
and
core and stuff, but you just
yeah.
expected them to tighten up on defense.
Oh, yeah. Absolutely. Well, and on the flip side of the ball, Colorado gave up 42 points too.
Yep.
So, I mean,
Yep.
let's talk about defense there. That's
Yep. I
I
mean, and also, we're taking on Shador. Dion. Dion has also another kid playing defense, Shiloh. Um,
hmm
but other than that one, and I think he should be the Heisman front runner right now. It's only week 1, but if I had to put money on it, this Travis Hunter kid, well, who played over 115 snaps,
I
and
was
he
about to
didn't look
say,
tired.
Alan.
He didn't look tired.
I was about to
He
say,
didn't look
Alan,
tired.
we talked about offense, we talked about defense. How can we talk about offense and defense and not talk about Travis
Travis
Hunter?
Hunter, yeah. I mean, that kid was a stud,
Unreal.
and we, yeah, they gave up 42 points, but it could have been this final score could have been 49-45 TCU if Travis Hunter didn't pick off at the goal line. And let's be real,
hmm
that was a good play, great play. Let's see,
hmm
Travis Hunter, he had 11 catches for 119 yards, so that's already
10
astounding.
10.8 average for his
Yeah,
yards
and
per touch.
also 3 tackles, an interception.
Yeah.
And the dude could
Now,
seem like he could play another quarter.
I mean, it's very Dion-esque of this team
Oh
to have a
yeah.
two-way player.
Oh yeah.
To have a two-way player. I mean, come on now.
Oh yeah.
we're seeing things we haven't seen since the 80s, 90s. I mean, this is fun football, man.
It is, and people already call. I don't know if you follow baseball, but they already call him Shohei Ohtani, who's probably the best baseball player to ever live, because he can pitch the ball and he can hit home runs. He was leading the league in home runs. Of course, he had an elbow. They took him off pitching because he got hurt, but they're already calling Travis Hunter the Shohei Ohtani of NCAA right now.
Well, we've seen one game from him.
Yeah, I
Let's see a
know,
little
and
more
that's
under
the
his
thing.
belt.
People are clamoring that Colorado's in the Pac-12, right?
Yeah, yep.
And they're already probably crowning them as the Pac-12 champions. This one game, it's against TCU. It's not against like a Bama team or a Clemson team, or Georgia.
Hmm.
So we can relish in their goodness, and that's great because they already tied their wins from last year. So,
Right, right.
but
You
a
know?
lot of questions, and Nebraska might answer those questions. It wouldn't surprise me
Yeah.
if Nebraska comes out and only allows like 17 points. We just don't know.
And that's the weird thing about this game. You could see it being a 14 to 21 game real easy, or we could see it be, 45, 35.
Yeah,
There's just no
that
guessing.
we don't know. And Matt
Yeah.
Rule has a good track record, and I don't think this first game is going to set him back that much. But I don't know if
You know,
Nebraska fans want to hear that after after years and years of after the Bo Pelini era, this has gone downhill.
and you know what? Nobody really knows until day one.
Yeah,
And so the true tellings of a good coach is how do you make adjustments? How do you bounce
right,
back after
right,
adversity? So we're gonna find out if Matt Rule's worth his money. We're gonna find out real quick week two.
right.
So
And then
uh,
speaking of adversity, last year LSU hired Brian Kelly, I believe, or is it Chip Kelly? It's one of the Kellys, and they didn't start off
it's a
great.
Kelly boy.
What?
It's a Kelly
Yeah,
boy,
it's a
right?
Kelly. Um,
Brian
they
Kelly.
didn't start great, but they did finish really good, and a lot of promise of LSU fans, and being
Hmm.
ranked number 5, the hype's there. And probably the most hyped game in terms of top 10, last night LSU versus number 8 Florida State. Um,
Mm.
I don't know if
Upset
you
alert.
caught the game. I saw
Oh
one
yeah.
play where the LSU quarterback hurdled over a pile, and Florida State guy just ran him into the ground, dude. Oof, that was
Florida
that was awesome.
Florida State came to play.
But Florida State proved me wrong too. I didn't think it would be a close game, but I thought LSU would have the edge because LSU has some pedigree to them.
Right,
But
right. Well,
I was
they're
wrong.
touting the name, but FSU's ready. They're saying this is our year. I mean,
And I mean,
that's
they're firing all the guns right now. So to
they
hold
are.
LSU to 24 points, pretty impressive.
Yeah, yeah, and you're talking 360 yards passing in total, and you're seeing 342 of those yards coming from Jordan Travis, and they're having 135 yards on the ground, and we got two touchdowns from them on the ground, one
Right.
touchdown or four touchdowns through the air, excuse me, one pick. So, I mean, they're lighting it up over the air. They got quarterback situation figured out.
Figured out, I would
So,
say, yeah. And and it seems like Florida State is a bend don't break type of deal because they did allow 347 yards, but only one passing touchdown. So they're figuring it out in the red zone when it matters the most. It seems so.
right, right.
And maybe a
Yep.
lot of those passing yards from LSU are from trash time. I don't know. I didn't watch the game to be honest with you, but
Well, for the box score, you're seeing LSU come out. They scored seven in the first, 10 in the second, none in the third, seven in the
that's
fourth. So really came out flat. Yep, and then out the second half. And Florida State, they were seven in the first, seven in the
and,
second, 10 in the third, and 21 in the fourth. So they
yeah.
were they were there to close.
Yeah, they
They
closed
didn't
the
let.
game. And if you score three tutties in the fourth quarter, you're closing out that game. Hopefully.
Yeah, they had
Hopefully.
their foot on the gas all the way
Yeah.
through.
And that's how
So
you should play. I mean, we've seen coaches.
yeah.
I mean, I've mainly seen NFL. They just stop pressing, stop being aggressive, and that's when you've seen those comebacks. And college football is no different. I mean, we've seen amazing comebacks in recent years.
Hey,
So
so it may not be recent years, but as a Michigan fan, Alan, how does Appalachian State sit with you?
yeah, that's considered. I mean, that was before I really watched college football. I'm gonna be honest. And I didn't know about it until like the eighth grade when I
Oh
watched
man.
the greatest upset, not just in sports, but I was watching a greatest upset in any sports, in hockey. The Miracle on Ice. I'm sure you know what that is about. Um,
Oh yeah.
they had a movie about it. I watched the movie a while ago, but I was a kid and I didn't understand. So, um,
Right. Ugh.
but yeah, I think Appalachian lost Sunday too.
Did they?
I
Who
think
were
so.
they
They were
playing?
losing. I think it was like Missouri State or something. But I definitely I'm wrong about that. But speaking of Michigan, I mean, they didn't light up the scoreboard like Oklahoma did or Alabama did. But that's not really what Michigan does. 30-3, the last three
Hold
point.
on.
Oh, you go.
We're gonna put a pin in this Michigan thing. It
Okay.
looks like Appalachian State actually rolled
Oh,
Gardner
roll.
Webb. So yeah,
Okay.
45-24. Anyway, back on your
My
roll with
bad.
Michigan.
That's my bad.
No, no. Back on your roll with Michigan.
But yeah, like, yeah, this is typical Michigan. They don't score a ton of points unless you're Ohio State. Um, but I mean, physical and Michigan is known, at least the last 2 years, not to be flashy but physical team. Um, but they're kind of slowing into, McCarthy passing the ball. He had 280 yards, only 4 incompletions and 3 tutties. And
Uh,
that's what we like to see. I mean,
yeah,
last
we're
year
all in.
passing for us didn't really start off great. We were running with Blake Corum and Edwards, and um,
Right.
but yeah,
Well, and the way you presented that, you sound almost upset with the scoreboard there. But I mean, let's talk about the elephant in the room. They were doing that without a coach at the helm.
that is true. For some reason, giving cheeseburgers is illegal, so we gotta punish Harbaugh for that, and I'm sure every Harbaugh hater loves it, but it doesn't really matter because our first 4 games kind of cakewalks. So we should be winning those games. Um, but
Yeah,
I'm
you're
very interested
Michigan.
to see the Ohio State game. I mean, every year, obviously, Michigan Ohio State fans are looking forward to it, but we've won 2 in a row, and that's unprecedented, at least in the last
Yeah,
20
well,
years.
Alan,
Yeah.
if we're rolling into Michigan, I think we got to talk about our picks for the college football playoffs, especially after week one. Who do you
Right.
have? Who do you like?
I'll let you
Where
start
do you
first.
see your?
You brought this up. I'll let you start.
All right, so I'm gonna
After
say,
week one. This is after week one. Our
uh,
things will change week to week.
oh yeah, yep. I think it will change, but I gotta say, my fourth spot, I'm giving it to Bama.
Okay.
As much as
You
I'm,
hate. I know you don't like Bama. You don't like the
I
Bama
there.
train, so I know.
I think everybody is tired of the dynasty. They want to see
Hey,
some
they've
new players in
stopped.
the game.
They stopped winning.
It,
There's no dynasty
there-
anymore.
it's a dynasty. You cannot
You
talk.
think because
It,
Saban's still there is a dynasty?
that's the reason I have him as number four. I
Okay.
think Saban, with him being 71 years old,
He's that
he's
old?
losing. He's 71
He
years
doesn't
old.
look like that. He doesn't.
No, no,
I think he's.
he's
I knew
very
he was old,
methodic.
but damn.
Well, Saban was born old, man. He came out and he has wisdom. He has, composure,
Yeah.
things that you see from an aged coach he's been doing from day one.
Yeah,
So,
and he did it at
he
LSU too. So
he did.
yeah. Not
And
in the
so,
NFLs though, but we won't talk about that.
yeah.
So you got
Well,
Bama
and
number
so,
four.
yeah. And again, coming full circle, I think that there's some young, hungry coaches out there. And, talking about young and hungry coaches, one that I like Tennessee. I think
Ooh.
that they are a dark horse, and I have them at number three right now.
Oh
I think
wow, that's a
I
hot take and a half, man. They're
here
ranked number
here's
12
the
right
thing.
now.
They got the notch in their belt, man. They got the kryptonite. They're coming out swinging. They have the answers how to beat Alabama, and that's what everybody in the country is wondering. Tennessee has those answers, and they're coming
LSU has
back
the answers too. They
riding
beat them
high.
last year.
They do. They
But
do.
let's be
But
honest, like there were close games. There were really high paced games like we saw with Colorado and TCU. They weren't blowouts by Tennessee. They were really good
yeah.
games. And
Well,
heck, some
and
people even called the Bama Tennessee game of the year.
yeah, yeah. Well, and I'm saying Tennessee because they have a legitimate win. They're, week one playing Virginia. We're seeing more of these preseason conference games, but I mean, Virginia is a legitimate team for on the schedule, and I
Yeah, they're
think
not like
beating
a
them.
FCS team and stuff. So
Yeah, yeah, we're seeing legitimate games, and that's where when you see his scoreboard at 49 to 13, Tennessee came out and they showed up against a legitimate team, a team that's going to be right around the 500 bubble. They're going to go, 500, maybe a little over. They're going to go bowling. So to come out and roll a team like that and have a legitimate win on your schedule right away week one, I like them. I think they're
okay,
going to
so
number three.
that's your number three. Okay.
Yep, yep. And so number two. How do you talk about college football without talking about USC?
Oh, okay. That's
Yep,
not as
number
hard of a
two.
take, but they do look good and they do look good.
Yeah,
Former
and I
Heisman
mean
winner,
Williams.
you know.
Oh, Williams is going back to back, man. He showed up. He threw 5 touchdown passes. I mean, it's not as impressive yards wise as
Yeah,
Colorado or
we
Shador
yeah
there,
we
but
Tutty's all that
but
matters, man. If you throw
yeah,
100 yards and 6 touchdowns, you're having a day. Like
I was
so
gonna say, at the end of the day, last time I checked, the way you win games is putting more points on the
points.
board
Yeah.
than the other team. Yeah, and so to put up 5 touchdowns as a quarterback, good for him. That's where I'm saying he's a legitimate contender for the Heisman again.
Okay.
So,
So I'm interested to see what number one is.
Alan, you're gonna like this one.
Really. Maybe
Michigan.
not. Michigan, really.
Michigan.
Hmm. But they came out flat though. They didn't come out
Uh,
flashy like USC or Tennessee did,
No,
or even
no, they
Bama
weren't
for that
hanging
matter.
points. And here's my thoughts and my logic to Michigan.
Okay.
You have to have a Big Ten team in the playoffs. I
It
mean,
seems like that every
SEC.
year. Yeah.
Yep, SEC they get highly touted, but the overlooked conference through and through is the Big Ten, and I think everybody in the country who isn't a part of the SEC would agree with that statement, especially with, Michigan and Ohio State both being legitimate
Being
contenders
top
last
dogs.
year.
Yeah. I mean, Ohio State
Yeah,
was one good kick away from being the championship.
yeah,
So
yep. Well, and that's exactly why my alternate choice is Ohio State, because I mean,
okay, so
it's who,
it's like
yeah,
whoever
it's
wins
who
that game,
wins.
you're gonna have number one.
Exactly. It's
Interesting.
who
Okay.
whoever wins the Ohio State Michigan game, that's who's going to the college football playoffs. So that's my for and an alternate, Alan. Yeah, I'm gonna
So,
spin the mic back around to you.
but I
Who
do
who do
have
you
one
got?
question. Do you
Okay,
have
what you
any
got?
honorable like mentions? I know you have Ohio State, but why not Georgia? Like, why is Georgia
You
out of
know,
it?
I think repeat national championships, they got to be something special.
That
They
is
have to
hard to
be a
do.
team. Yeah, they have to be a team that they are hungry and they're there to do it again because it's really tough to be a part of a national championship and have the same hunger as a kid who doesn't know what that stage is like, and
Right.
that's what his whole life has been dedicated to, or that's his his job, showing up day one as a freshman, wide-eyed, bushy-tailed. He's ready to go play for a national championship, fired up.
Right.
And when you got 4, 5, 6 years with COVID of grooming, that's a
Mm,
young, hungry player.
yeah.
And so to have, 75% of your roster already see that stage, that's tough for any team to do. No knock to Georgia. It's just the X factor that you see from all these teams that I listed. So
Okay.
that's why I don't see it. Maybe I'm wrong. Maybe Georgia's something special, but we'll see.
Let's see. Okay.
So
Um.
um, I'm gonna flip it back to you, Alan. What do you got for your top four
So
teams?
number four, and I was kind of iffy on this because I had it. I made like a preseason ranking just before like the Notre Dame game and Navy game. Um,
Okay.
but they kind of validated my point. I have number four, Washington.
Ooh,
Washington, and they won. Let me look here.
56 to 19 over
56 and
Boise.
19 in Boise. And one of the reasons is their coach. I think they have the same coach. I could be wrong, but Washington was part of what some of the first playoffs, the 14 playoff, and with Jake Browning at quarterback. I don't know if you remember him, but
Oh yeah.
and with that, obviously they haven't been back since then, but and we're seeing, and they were like a more classic, not score a lot of points like Michigan, but they'll beat you down. Um, it seems
Right.
like that's changed a little, you know.
Yeah. Yeah. No,
450
absolutely.
yards from their quarterback. That's something. Five tutties.
Yeah.
And running, obviously they're a passing team, and that's not. In college football, you see a lot more running, but
Yeah.
it's still a passing era, and that will never change, probably ever. Um, but yeah, they're my number four team. Number three.
Well,
Oh, you go.
you say it's never going to change, but I mean, you really believe that with the new college football, or yeah, new college football rule of changing where they stop the clock for going out of bounds only for the last 2 minutes? I mean, talking about controlling the clock, that element's completely gone
Yeah,
now.
I'm just talking about for like NFL wise mainly. We do see a lot
Oh,
more
gotcha,
running,
gotcha.
running in NCAA level.
Yeah,
I mean,
right,
obviously
right.
Wisconsin has been probably the most dominant rushing team for the last 10 years. Um,
Right,
and
right.
even with not big names like Jonathan Taylor recently, or Melvin Gordon, or Monty Ball, Nebraska
Oh
knows
yeah.
about those guys. Um,
Yeah, we're gonna keep rolling. Alan, who's your third pick?
so my third pick. So I said Washington number four. Number three, I got to go Alabama. The
Okay,
pedigree, the
okay.
history. They've been there.
Hmm.
Obviously, new group of kids
Hmm.
that haven't been there, but they have coaches that been there. Um,
Hmm.
maybe one coach. There seems to be a lot of people that can handle Saban right now, but um, but you know, a lot of questions about Bama if they can win the big games. That obviously we have to see that. We're only week one, so but and that was their struggle last year. Against Tennessee, um, I don't know how many points they had, but I think it was like 49, I think, or 45. Their defense have not been the staple defense that we've seen Bama. So that's probably my biggest fear of Bama right now is their defense.
Yeah.
But
They gave up 7 points to Middle Tennessee. 7 points doesn't mean much to many in the country defensively, but when you're talking Alabama playing Middle
oh my,
Tennessee,
they're still gonna let points up, even back when they were dominant. They let up 7
this
points
is
to Notre Dame. So
Alabama. This
so
is
what?
Alabama. This
So
is
what?
we
When
have the
was the
standard of
score?
football we've
When did
come
they
to
get
expect.
7 points? Third
Third
quarter.
quarter.
So that ain't
Mhm.
nothing. That ain't nothing.
Hey, it's obviously it's not a
Yeah.
shutout. A
Oh my.
shutout's nothing.
Yeah. Okay. Was there any shutouts besides Oklahoma?
Inside the top 25?
Yeah. I don't think so.
Kansas State.
Oh
Kansas
yeah,
State.
Kansas State. They're a dark horse. I'm gonna be honest with you. They're a dark
I,
horse.
that coach, I think he has things turned around.
Coach Climate. I don't know his first name, but
How do you
and I
how
know
do
him
you
because
know him,
I'm
Alan?
an NDSU North Dakota State Bison football alumni. Graduated last year, and we've won 9 championships in the last 11 years, and we've been to 10. I
Hey,
mean,
hey, do you see the 2026 schedule?
so if you don't know, you probably don't know about NDSU football, probably because you guys listen to FBS instead of FCS. But we do face Bama in 2026. And to be honest, Bama's gonna put up 60 points. Like, let's be honest with you. I mean,
Oh, come on, Alan. Have some faith.
NDSU has beaten every FBS team they have played, and their last recent one was against number 13 or number 13 at the time, Iowa. So
They beat them?
yeah, they beat them second field goal.
NDSU beat Iowa?
Iowa. That was like 2019, 2020.
You sure on that?
Yep.
Really? Hold on now.
Why don't you
I,
believe
I
me?
need to score check that. You are exactly right. 23 to 21. Holy cow. I could have
2016.
sworn. Yeah, I could have sworn that they were gonna win that game. I was watching that. I thought Iowa was gonna win it.
No.
Wow. Nope, you're right. Last second field goal. Good for NDSU. We're gonna that 2026. Mark your calendar. 3 years
Right.
out,
They were
you're gonna want
supposed
to
to
watch that
face
game.
Oregon, but COVID hit. That was the COVID year, so we didn't face Oregon.
Mm,
Um,
that would have been a good game.
so yeah, I have four Washington, number three Alabama, roll tide roll.
Old time rules.
So number two, I'm gonna have to go Michigan. Um,
Michigan,
yep,
like it.
Michigan, and I think they're rolling like they have last 2 years. Physicality. They're not a finesse team, but they like to run the ball. And last year we saw them developing into more of a big play passing team, especially that was put on display against Ohio State, which to my surprise is lacking that physicality. Especially against big teams. Like, and they almost lost to Nebraska last year. Let's put that on the table too. And
Yeah,
sorry to bring that up, but they almost lost to Nebraska.
I mean, we
Um,
have a lot of those in our belt at this point in time.
yeah,
Almost, just don't
almost.
know how to close those games.
Man, I that you outscore your opponents the whole year, but you're like what 3 wins, 4 wins,
3-win team.
three
Yeah.
win team, and
Yep.
it's incredible, and I don't think that's talked about enough. And yeah, obviously that's kind of a negative light, no matter how you look at it. But that's just impressive. I don't think that
And
will ever be done.
you know, that is just showing you a team on the cusp, and that needs to be a culture change, and hopefully Matt's going to change that.
Yeah,
But we'll see. Time
we'll
will
see.
tell. That's going to be a learning
Yeah.
curve for him.
But back to
Anyway,
Michigan, yeah. I mean, Blake Corum,
Michigan.
who was a Heisman, talked about. I mean, he didn't finish in the top four, but he was talked about.
Mhm.
And even when he got hurt, not Dylan Edwards, but what is his name? Let me look. Um, it wasn't
This is for Michigan.
Edwards. Donovan Edwards. My bad. Donovan Edwards.
Donovan
They call him
Edwards.
the Don when they're replacing
The
um,
down.
Ohio State. But the reason why I'm not so high on Ohio State is they just lack that physicality factor. When they get punched in the face, they rarely come back to get right back to punching again. I mean, look at the Michigan game. That's a perfect example. They just ran all over them. I mean, they held up in the first half. Ohio State looked a little bit better, but then the second half they just lost all of that.
I
So
mean,
that's my number two, Michigan. Yep. You got something?
okay, okay. I was just gonna say, you're talking about how they handle adversity, and again, that comes with years of experience to gain that confidence. And when Michigan has played so many years at top tier football, and tip of the cap to Harbaugh turning that program around, and
Right.
University of Michigan investing in his success as a coach. It was kind of a rough go right out the gate.
Oh
We
yeah.
weren't sure how it was gonna. Yeah, coming from he was previously at the NFL, right? That's where his last coaching job was before
Yeah.
Michigan.
49ers.
Yep, yep. And so he was kind of a rocky start. They didn't know if he was going to transition well. I remember watching the headlines of Harbaugh coaching for his job and, putting up a
That seemed to be
500
like every
season.
year. Yeah.
Yeah, yeah. But I mean, now you're seeing them consistently in the top 25 every year. If Michigan's not in the top 25, that's wild. And so for them to be, in playoff contention back-to-back years, they're, I think that they have leaders who have been on the cusp, and I think they're hungry enough that they're going to come back and work twice as hard. And I think we're really going to see adversity handled differently, in my opinion.
Yeah. We'll
I
wait
want
to
to see.
see. We'll
Time
wait
will
to see.
tell. Yeah.
You speak almost with Nebraska, and it seems like almost can be placed with Michigan. They make the playoffs the last 2 years, but had to go against Georgia that first year, and then for some reason just didn't play Michigan football like they had all year and got beat by Max Duggan and TCU. And
Hmm.
give credit to
Hmm.
TCU, they balled. But Michigan just
They
wasn't playing like they should have, and mainly, and most part to that is TCU. So yeah,
Right,
um,
right. Well, and I think the first test of Michigan's schedule is honestly going to be Minnesota. I think PJ Fleck came out and nobody knew how this season was going to go for PJ. A lot of people were talking about it being a rebuilding year, and with their quarterback, like I said, stepping up, showing poise. I think that's going to be the first test for Michigan on their schedule. And right now, they're only playing two ranked opponents as
at the
schedule
moment,
sits
yeah.
today. Yeah, I think that's
That's still a pretty
subject to
good,
change.
pretty tough schedule for the second half. I mean, Purdue, Purdue always seems to be low, but they seem to be the upset kings. They whooped Ohio State that one year. I forgot what year that was. I think that was with JT Barrett as quarterback, and they just stomped Ohio State. It wasn't even close. But
Yeah,
Purdue seems to be that team that upsets a lot. So
they
that's
play like they got nothing to lose. A true
which is
college
weird
football
because
team.
they don't do that consistently, and I think if they do, they could be top 25 easily.
Yeah, yeah,
So
they could really string it together, but we'll see. Purdue, they'll come out swinging. We'll see. And Maryland, I think they're a very similar team. A
yeah,
very nothing to lose type team. They're energetic, they're hungry, and I think that they've been such a lowly touted program for so long that they're tired
they're
of it.
about to be
They're
turnaround. They're bound to turn around because
yeah,
they
and
just
they
seem to
already
be the
are.
upset kings of football. So
Yeah, Maryland has been a legitimate team for the last 3 4 years. So Big Ten football. What do you expect? Anything less? Anybody can beat anybody on any given Saturday.
apparently not in the playoffs, so because the Big Ten haven't had that much success for a while.
Hey, I
I think they
mean
won it 3 years
Michigan.
ago when they stomped on Clemson. So
Michigan did upset the Ohio State last year, so easy there.
yeah, I mean they punched Ohio State in the mouth, and they just for some reason didn't punch back like we used to see. So,
Right.
I
Right. So
mean,
I'm
two in a
sorry.
row. After the first game, maybe it's a fluke. 2 years ago when we beat them at Michigan, and then this year, beat them again, even more convincingly. So now everyone
Hmm.
wants, after that game last year, everyone wanted Ryan Day to get fired, even though he's only lost like what 3 games the last like 4 years or something. Like he doesn't lose, and they wanted him gone
Right.
because he lost to Michigan twice. Then that's just crazy.
Right.
They wanted Urban Meyer to come back,
That
so
is
that's
that is a
crazy.
rivalry game. That is the definition of a
Of a
rivalry
rivalry
game.
game, yeah. And
That
we don't,
they are
and
coaching for their
unfortunately,
jobs.
we don't see that a lot, nowadays. That's really like, I mean, obviously, you still have the Iron Bowl, but that's been
Mhm.
one sided. Let's be honest, that's been
Mm.
one sided. And even at like
Well, last year,
Alabama and LSU, you don't see, there are rivals, but you don't see that type of rival when you like, oh, kick Saban out and stuff like that. So,
yeah, calling for a coach's head. I mean, that's an aggressive statement, but that is, if you lose more than 2 games in a row of that specific game, you can be a playoff contender. But if
yeah.
you are losing the Ohio State Michigan game 3 years, you better be looking ahead for the wanted ads because they're
Yeah,
calling for your
Michigan
head.
was there. Michigan was there at one point. I think they lost like four in a row or five, something like that.
They were calling for his job.
And JT
Yeah.
Barrett did not make that fourth down. I'll say that. I think it was 2016. It was literally like half a football length away from the first down, and they called it a first down. So
Oh,
I
yeah.
I don't know.
Well,
So
all right. Back on track here.
yep,
So 4 Washington, 3 Bama, 2 Michigan. Without further ado, who's your number one?
number
I think I
one,
already
and
got a
then
pretty good idea.
until they get beaten, and it doesn't matter how they get beat, if they get whooped or a close game, until they get beaten, Georgia will be my clear number one. This clear number one, and I don't think it's close because they just
Reason
don't
being.
know how to lose, and that's my main
Mm.
thing. They just don't lose.
You know,
And yes, they have a new quarterback. Yes, they have like what, like 4 or 5 new guys on defense or something like that. They all went to the Eagles apparently, like, seemingly. Um,
Mhm.
that's like Georgia, you there, and Eagles, and I hate the Eagles. I'm a Giants fan. Um, we'll touch on that, and next week or maybe later in the quick NFL segment. But yep, until they prove to me that they are not invincible, Georgia is my clear number one.
you like Georgia,
Georgia. I
and
don't like them, but until they prove to me that they can be defeated, they're number one.
right, right.
Yeah,
Well, and no chinks in the armor. I think
yeah.
that's solid. They're a solid team. At no point was that game ever in question, just in case you're wondering, the highest probability of University of Martin
Skyhawks.
was 1%. I'm sorry, 1.1%.
Really?
That game, yeah, that game was on lock.
Yeah.
So
I mean, Georgia did come out a
unquestionably,
little flat, only scoring 17 in the first half, but it doesn't matter. I mean, this is
right.
14 and 17 in the third and fourth quarters. So,
Yeah,
and their new
yeah, they were getting
quarterback, I mean, 294 yards, only 10 incompletions, so good start.
right,
And that's what you
right.
want for a
Well,
new quarterback is, yeah, you might not get the flashy five tutties and stuff like Caleb Williams, but for a new guy to come in from what's that Georgia quarterback name? I forgot, man. I should know. Stenson Bennett, right?
Stetson,
Stenson
yep,
Bennett,
Stetson
who got
Bennett,
drafted by
yep,
the Rams, and I hope he does
yep,
good. Um,
yeah,
but that's a big role to fill because it seemed like he could do no wrong. He just had that magic factor, like kind of like a
yeah,
Mahomes. Now, obviously not exactly like Mahomes or Caleb Williams, but he just knew where everything was. It seems so.
yeah,
That's big roles
yeah,
to fill, and for a new quarterback, obviously you shouldn't expect that, and that's a good start for him. So
yeah. Good week one win.
yeah,
So, Alan, any other dark
other
horses?
no dark horses.
Any other outside shots at who you have earmarked of honorable mentions or
Honorable
anything
mention,
like
yeah, I
that?
would put Penn State and Florida State. Obviously, Florida State with that huge statement win against LSU, and
Yeah.
obviously, I mean, it's first week, but we all know that one loss could be detrimental to your playoff implications. But maybe not. You
Hmm.
know, maybe LSU turns the table, wins all the games, and Florida State loses two. You know, but
Yeah.
it seems
Yeah.
they
Well,
got Southern Miss and Boston College next, and they have another good game against Clemson, 23rd
yeah.
of this month. But after
Well,
that,
and
it's clear you got Syracuse, Duke, Wake Forest, Pitt, Miami, North Alabama, and Florida.
right. Well, and let's spin off here for a second. You were talking about having one loss on your record being detrimental to your playoff hopes.
Yeah,
So, what is your thoughts on the expansion, 12 teams? I mean,
I
what are
love
we
it.
going to be looking at next year?
I love it.
Thank you.
I mean,
Absolutely.
we all know what the college, the four playoff team and why they took so long to do is money. You want revenue.
Oh yeah.
Revenue,
Yeah.
and but for the fans and especially for the players and the teams, like let's be honest, like the bowl game seems to be like a pat on the back, like you had an all right season. Not all bowl games, like the Rose Bowl Classic, other
Hmm.
bowls I can't name off the top of my head, but a lot of them are kind of
Cotton
like
Bowl, Alamo Bowl.
participation kind of, you know what I mean, like
Oh yeah.
yeah, it's a good send off if you win that game, but if you're teams like Alabama or Ohio State, like that's just kind of like a slap in the face a little bit.
Yeah. Well, and are we going to see an entire changing of postseason? I mean, are we going to see more of a March Madness type atmosphere in college football? Are we going to see,
Maybe.
more? I'm excited. I don't think anybody really knows, but I think that we are seeing history. This is reshaping of a culture, and I'm excited. This gives
Is it
teams a
a 12
legit
team
chance.
expansion?
12 team from what I thought. I thought they're rolling to 12 teams
Okay.
next year.
Yeah, that would be, I mean, if it obviously it changes, but if we had that 12-man team and with the rankings, have Georgia, Tennessee, that's a good game. Like Tennessee, obviously you put is no slouch, so that could be a really good game. And that
Yeah.
should be like it should be upset. We love the upsets, and that does create more chances for upsets.
Yeah, well, and it makes a team play to the best of their ability. I mean, you can prep and groom somebody for 2 weeks, and you will see top tier football. You'll see Alabama football. But what I'm excited for is that Purdue mentality you were talking about, that upset, that I have
Mm-hmm.
nothing to lose, putting it on the line. Number 12 playing number one, no reservations, and making them earn it.
Right,
You know, make them earn it.
right, and obviously the other mention, and it's a small mention, Texas a little bit, but more so on Arch Manning. You know,
Mm.
I'm sure that kid has no pressure at all. I'm kidding, by the way. With Peyton Manning and
Never.
Eli as your uncles, like and then going
Mm.
to a team like Texas, who seems to be ranked in the top 25, and at the end of the year, just not there. But maybe this is the change. Maybe, I mean, obviously Arch ain't starting this year. Maybe, I mean, injuries
Mm.
could happen, but I
Hmm.
saw him play spring ball a little bit. Just a little bit tangent here, but he was making. He wasn't flashy, but when he was like rushed, he didn't force the ball. He just threw it away. He didn't take sacks. He throw interceptions. He threw it away, and that's for a young guy to do that. That's impressive, in my opinion. That is
Well,
impressive.
when you have your dad as the sheriff, I think you learn a
His
thing or
dad is
two.
Cooper
Playing.
Manning, by the way, not
Oh,
Peyton
I'm
or
so
Eli.
sorry, Uncle.
Cooper.
So sorry. Misspoke. Misspoke. Yep, yep. So your uncle playing backyard football there. Thanksgiving, you pick up a thing or two, I'm sure.
Yeah, but I'm sure Eli and Peyton know that he need do his own stuff. He like play his own way.
Yeah,
They'll give little
yeah.
tidbits in that, but he has his own path, and I think he broke both Peyton and Eli's records in Newman High School. I think I'm not
Mm.
too sure about that, but I mean,
Hmm.
obviously his dad too, Cooper Manning, unfortunately couldn't play college football because of his spine disease, but he was a good receiver in his own right.
Right,
So,
right.
like
And
as a
that was
quarterback,
part of.
you need to know what your receivers are doing, let alone everyone else's job. So,
Right. Well, and if you listen to Eli and Peyton talk about it, and you talked about it to me in the Book of Manning, but that's what propelled them to play for something more than themselves, but play for their brother who didn't
brother's
have
dream, yeah.
the ability to do that. Exactly. So yeah,
I'm
you know
excited
that.
for Arch. I really am.
Yeah,
And also,
yeah.
you got to
He's
put
gonna be something special.
mention Archie Manning too, the first Manning to play uh, in the
Oh yeah.
NFL and stuff. I mean, he was on a
Did
bad
it?
Saints team back then, and he was the only saving grace. It seemed like if you watch clips of him, it seemed like he's like running for his life, like Joe Burrow is right now with the Bengals. So,
Mm-hmm.
but yep, those are my top four teams. Till proven otherwise, Georgia will be number one for the rest of the year for me. Michigan two, Alabama three, and then I mean these are playoff. What we're thinking of playoff teams, not the rankings for this week or next week. This is what I think happened at the end of the season, and I
Right.
think Washington will finish number four.
The way too early playoff
Yeah, just way
predictions.
too early. Way too early. I mean, Kansas
Yeah.
State, they're 16th, but they could easily go in the top 10, top 5 even if they continue to play like there.
Mm.
So,
Hmm.
but for the most
Well, and
part, besides TCU, sorry, everyone
no.
played like they expected, and everyone won their games like they should have. So, yeah.
Showed up, showed out. Yeah, that's week one for you. I mean, but I mean, talking about, way too early and, predictions, where are you sitting for if you had to pick a Heisman candidate in this way too early season?
Yeah.
Who do you got?
It's got Caleb Williams. And that's
Got
only because
Caleb
I only
Williams.
know Caleb Williams. I don't know any other great players. And you got Travis Hunter, from Colorado, but it's week one. We'll see how he fares in upcoming weeks. But I think Caleb
Right.
Williams is clear, and then maybe Blake Corum once he gets running. He didn't have a great game, but we'll see.
Mm-hmm.
But Travis
Mm-hmm.
Hunter's also one to keep your eye on. So
Yeah, yeah. Well, and
and maybe even
if we're going
Shador
solely,
Sanders, maybe.
I was gonna say if we're going off of week one solely, how do you not have that conversation about Shador? I mean,
Shador,
he putting up 510 yards,
in
and
his
you're talking,
first first FBS division. I mean, FCS is Division One, but it's his first game against like someone like TCU. So
yeah, yeah, to play against a top 25 team, and albeit, maybe a little
maybe a
lackluster
little higher
defense.
than they should have. So it would
Yeah,
surprise me
but
if TCU gets kicked out.
yeah, I was
But
gonna say, rightfully so. I would expect Colorado to have the potential to take TCU's spot,
yeah,
to beat a top 25 team. That's usually how you see the rotation happen. But we just don't have a lot on the schedule. It's really early,
oh
so
yeah,
a lot of exciting things to look forward to.
yep.
So looking ahead, is there any games that you're excited for in this next coming week?
Week two, huh?
Yeah, week two. I
Let's,
mean, You got some exciting matchups. I mean, nothing too crazy for preseason, but I mean, obviously we've already talked about the Nebraska-Colorado game. I think that's gonna be a big tell. We're gonna
Yeah,
find out who's who.
and I
And
think that's probably what everyone's going to be watching. So
but I mean, the game of Saturday, Alan, you go ahead and take some time to think about it. I'm gonna tell you my game for Saturday is Alabama, Texas.
oh, they play.
They
Oh, yep, right
play at
there. I mean,
6
last year they
p.m.
were one field goal away from beating Bama,
Yep.
but it is at Bama this time around, though. So
Okay.
that could be
Okay.
a big difference.
Yeah, we're gonna see what Ears is made of too. I mean, he's
Hmm.
he's a transfer, and he seemed to be composed in the pocket. And I'll be honest, I watched that Texas game, and I heard at one point on the field the turf was 160
Yep.
degrees,
Yep.
and yeah, and for him to sit in the pocket and be patient and not get frustrated, I think that's a tell that he's a composed quarterback. We didn't see many errors from him. He
Nope.
was pretty well put together. So yeah, I'm excited for that Alabama Texas game. Bring it on.
Yeah. I mean,
Any other matchups you like?
the only other big matchup is Ole Miss versus Tulane, another top 25. And Ole Miss
Mm,
did come out swinging, and that's obviously Eli's alma mater. That's Archie alma mater, and Cooper could have gone to Ole Miss,
hmm
but yeah. Other than that,
hmm
there really isn't too much. I
I,
don't
you
really
know,
see any upset potentials, really.
the one that I'm gonna see somebody maybe get tested, or it should be at least a good matchup, is that Stanford USC
Oh, I was
game.
watching it. 9:30 p.m.
Yeah, it's gonna be a late one.
Not good for me and you. So
No, but it's California football, man. They're just getting their
Stanford
day
used to
started.
be a powerhouse when they
Yeah,
had
yeah.
Luck and I believe it was Hogan after him. But
A historic program for sure. I'm talking about
and
grassroots,
it's, yeah,
but I
speaking of
mean,
Stanford, they're going to be in the ACC, I believe. I think last Friday
yeah.
they decided that SMU, Stanford, and another team I forgot. So we're seeing a lot of college realignment too. So,
Oh yeah, big shakeup.
and what do you
Big
think? Is that
shakeup.
you think that's good for college football?
I think it's the result of the NIL. I think when you start talking about dollars and
Yeah,
you put money in front of young, hungry college kids, I think your interests
and
change.
you can't really
And
blame the kids for doing getting the money.
no,
So, but that
absolutely not.
used to be not a factor at all back in the day. These
No.
NILs and stuff, and college
And
athletes getting
that's
paid and stuff. But
yeah. I read something once that said I wish they'd just go back to paying the players under the table. And, I don't know if a truer thing had been spoken.
yeah,
It's because, there was a perception that the sport was played in a pure aspect. And even though they were getting paid under the table, there wasn't the expectation of getting paid. And it wasn't about the money. And
yeah,
that's what made
I
college
agree.
football,
And we're kind
that's
of
what
seeing
made it
that
pure.
change a little because a lot of people are transferring out for the money,
Yeah.
um, and stuff.
Oh,
So
yeah.
I mean,
Yeah.
you
Well,
can't
and
blame the kids. I mean, you got to
no.
do what you got
Well,
to
and
do, and it'll help them out. So
yeah, and I think the NIL deal tremendously helped save what's left of the Nebraska program. When you
mhm.
start talking about, yeah, because as Matt Rule, yeah, albeit he is a NFL caliber coach, but how do you recruit to a 3-win team? How do you
Yeah,
start
that's
pulling 4-star? Yeah,
that's gonna be really
you
tough.
put the money on the table, and
Just
kids
hire
will show
Dion,
up.
man. He's a recruiting
Uh,
genius. Seems like.
You know, Dion's got a win under his belt. And, rivalry week has already started for Nebraska and Colorado. I seen a tweet put out there that said Matt Rule's record against top 25 teams 0 and 11. Deion Sanders' record against top 25 teams 1 and 0. So we're already starting to see some
Oh,
rivalry come
that's
out, and I'm liking it.
and that used to be an old rivalry back in the day,
Oh,
Colorado and you've told me some stories about it. I won't go into that, but they used to be an old rivalry. Big 12 was it?
yeah, yeah,
Yeah,
Big
yeah.
12. That was where there was some hatred there.
Did you
Still
go
some
to a
hatred.
Colorado game? Was it at Colorado and against Nebraska?
Scott Frost debut.
Scott Frost.
Absolutely.
It was it in Colorado or Nebraska?
It was in Memorial Stadium. It was
That's
in
Nebraska.
Nebraska.
Have you
Yeah,
gone to
yeah.
the Boulder in the stadium in Boulder?
I have not.
It
I
looks
don't think we would be
beautiful.
well
It looks
welcomed. Oh,
freaking gorgeous.
I
Like
don't doubt that. You got
I
the
don't know, but I
backdrop.
wasn't really paying attention to the stadium because I was just seeing that clear mountain back at there. Like, and I've been to Boulder. I used to live in Colorado, so I've been to Boulder, but never got the chance to go there. But that looks gorgeous.
Well, when you got the picturesque backdrop, it's hard to make it look bad.
Yeah.
So they're there. That's a good recruiting tool for
Yep.
Dion.
You see that
He's
mountain?
got
It's a beautiful
yeah.
mountain.
Used
Like,
to be able to chuck a ball over that mountain
check it
there.
all that mountain, man. We would have won the state if they put me in the fourth quarter.
Chuck a ball 1/4 mile.
Napoleon Dynamite reference, by the way, if you're too young for that. Greatest movie of all time, by the way. Hands down. It's the
Uncle Rico.
cringiest movie, but also being the
Oh,
greatest movie of all
I think there's a few teams that could use an Uncle Rico right about now.
time. Yeah, maybe the
Oh.
Cowboys. But, um,
Oh man.
I mean, I'm all
Oh.
good for the college side of football. I mean, we don't have to talk a lot about NFL if you just want to wait. We could do
Yeah.
that. But,
Yeah, we'll circle
first
back around.
games this
We'll do that.
Thursday. Defending Super Bowl champions Patrick Mahomes go to Detroit, I believe.
Ooh, that'll be a good one.
Detroit, yeah, and I think many people are sleeping in Detroit. They started like 1-6 and finished 9-8, so they finished strong. They ruined
Yeah.
they ruined Rodgers' last chance at a playoff. They stopped him from going to the playoffs. So
Yeah. Well, and I mean Dan Campbell. How do you take anything away from him?
he's
He's
a
been
he's a coach of coach. Like he's a man's coach. Like he's funny, but also down to
turn
earth and stuff. So
yeah, and turn that Lions team all the way around. But
yeah,
yeah, well, that's one to keep an eye on. So we'll definitely have to circle back and throw a
yeah,
segment on that.
we don't have too much to go on NFL wise. I mean, maybe
You know.
C.J. Stroud making his start from Ohio State for the Texans, but
Yeah.
it's just way too early. Big, yeah.
It's gonna be exciting. But awesome, man. Well, any other thoughts, final thoughts on college football, or we
We're
wrapped up
just
here?
back to football. I mean, got some classic games out of the way. Obviously, an
Love to see
upset.
it. Love to see it. It's good to have that fall feeling back.
Oh yeah, I mean, it doesn't feel fall down here in Arkansas. I'll tell you that, and it won't for like until like mid-December. So it's
Oh,
just
yeah.
I don't like the heat. It's horrible, horrible.
Oh, yeah. Yeah.
Oh.
Well, we don't got that problem up here in South Dakota. So when you're ready to move back, buddy.
Yeah, yeah.
All right. Well, awesome. Well, thank you, my friend. It was good to break down week one of college football, and we're excited looking ahead.
But I'm just interested to see how, because these top 25 changes drastically almost every week it seems. So,
Yep.
but
Yep. Next week's going to be a new picture.
yeah, well, that's it for me.
All righty. Cool. Well,
Cool.
till next time.
Peace.
Later.